The Terps could end up surprising USC.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day, and also content creator over at InsideBlackandGold.net. Make sure you guys go over to InsideBlackandGold.net for all your latest Terps news. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. I know a lot of you guys will not believe this, but I'm going to bring some positivity today. And I think I give the Terps a chance not to win against USC, but to surprise USC and do some good things to improve, to look better in a lot of different areas. I think the Terps can surprise the Trojans. I'm not saying they can win the game, but I'm saying I think they can surprise the Trojans at home. If you guys didn't know, this game's at home, which I think is huge for Maryland. And I know last game we played at home, we lost to a Northwestern team that is a lot worse than this USC team we are about to play. But I still think playing this game at home, playing in the shell, playing at our own spot instead of having to travel all the way to California will allow us to potentially surprise USC. It is not easy for USC to have to fly across the country all the way from Southern California all the way over to College Park, Maryland. That's a far plane ride. I don't know exactly how far that is, but that's a pretty far distance to go. And I think when you think about it, as college kids with class and all these different components that you have to deal with, that's probably most of those guys' main focus. But still, you still have to fly across the entire country. Imagine if Maryland had to fly across to California. I would feel a lot worse about us playing this game. So I think that's number one reason why the Terps have a good chance to surprise USC. I think them having to come all the way over to Maryland, I think is something that matters. I think that travel matters. I think that kind of throws you off a little bit. The time change, that's a thing. There's different components to having to fly all the way across the country. Like that's not easy. As a college athlete myself, even when we just have to go on a bus ride that's three hours away, let's say, and we have to spend a night somewhere else, it's always a challenge with having to keep up with class and keep up with his assignments and having to get ready to travel and pack and all these different things. Like it is something that a lot of people don't talk about, but it is something that matters. I also think there's a motivation factor here for the Maryland Terrapins. It doesn't feel like we ever got that signature win under Talia. I know we've came close. We almost beat Michigan. There was time we almost beat Ohio State. There's been different times. Beating this USC team, maybe a lot of people wouldn't consider a signature win for Mike Locksley, but I think I would, just because of how this season has gone, how poorly we have looked over the last couple of weeks, and how things have gone so far this season. I would consider it a humongous signature win for Coach Locksley. And I think when you've dropped two straight teams that definitely aren't anything insane. Like Indiana's ranked 16th in the country right now, but they're due for a little bit of regression. Northwestern, I think we can all say they're not very good. And for them to drop two straight and to be 0-3 in Big Ten play, the Terps are desperate at this point. And I think that's what you got to consider, is that it kind of feels like we're becoming a team that doesn't have anything to lose. I know we're playing for a bowl game, and it does seem like there's stuff to lose, but it seems like a lot of the season is already kind of like being forfeited. We're 0-3 in the Big Ten. We haven't looked great. We don't look like we have a huge future in terms of, it doesn't look like we're going to make a bowl game. It doesn't look like a lot of guys are fighting for spots still. Guys are fighting for future spots. It looks like we're a team that has nothing to lose, to be honest. It's not like we're fighting for a playoff spot. It's even kind of like a bowl game's kind of out of reach a little bit for the Maryland Terrapins. So it does kind of feel like we're playing a game. We don't really have much to lose. We don't really have a lot to lose, it feels like, for the Terps. And playing a team that has nothing to lose is a really scary team that can surprise USC in a lot of different ways. I want to remind everyone, I'm not saying we're going to win this game, but I do think there's certain ways that we can surprise them. Like I said, the first reason I said was because of travel. USC might not be ready to play us. Number two, I feel like we don't have a lot to lose. We've lost 2 straight. All the Maryland fans aren't expecting us to win this game. People aren't expecting us to go at home and win this game, and it feels like we're a team that has nothing to lose. And vice versa for USC, when you look at them, on the other side, it's like, this is a team that's really struggled so far this season and hasn't played as good as a lot of people thought. They've been in every single game, basically. Lost by 7 to Minnesota, lost to Penn State. Both teams are coming off 2 straight losses. But USC is a team that is expected to compete for national championships. And when you bring in Lincoln Riley and pay him millions of dollars, you're expecting to compete for national championships. And I think it's fair to say that USC has a lot to lose in this game. If Lincoln Riley loses to the Maryland Terrapins, a lot of people could be calling for his job, potentially. A lot of people could say, get him out of here. He hasn't been good enough. We got to make a change. I know that's not necessarily what USC will do, and I'm not saying that will happen, but I think that Mike Locksley losing to USC, I don't think there's a whole lot more fire under the tunnel for Mike Locksley if he loses this game. Like, we've lost to Northwestern. We lost to Indiana. Why would we be expected to beat USC now? You know what I mean? So it feels like we're kind of playing right now as a team that has not a ton to lose. While USC, if they drop 3 straight and lose to Maryland, that's going to be a bad thing for their program. So I think that when you talk about the travel and when you talk about playing a team that doesn't have really much to lose versus a team that has a lot to lose, I think that it could make for a Terps team that could end up surprising USC in a lot of different ways. And I do believe that. I do think that the Terrapins can surprise them. And I do want to say this. We have a good enough team to surprise USC in a lot of different components. I know the offensive line has struggled. I know the secondary has struggled. But I think we have a good enough offense. If the offensive line can figure it out somewhat, I think we have enough weapons, and Billy Edwards as a player can make this game into a shootout. I don't know if we can stop them, but I do think that we can score on them. Even though their defense has been better at times this season, teams haven't been able to score a ton of points on USC, but I do still believe that our offense can score some points against the USC Trojans. Like, I'm not super scared about their defense. I'm also not really scared about their offense either. I think Miller Moss has been over the last couple of weeks. I know he's been really good at times. He's been at times, but he doesn't scare me like what they've had with Caleb Williams. They don't scare me like that. Even their weapons and a lot of the guys outside, I know they have some good players, but a lot of those guys don't completely scare me like some past USC teams have had. And so I feel pretty good that the Terps can surprise USC. Could we end up getting blown out? For sure. For sure. What I've seen from Maryland, could we end up losing by 30 points? Yes, we just got smoked by Northwestern. But I do think there is a recipe here for a potential chance for the Maryland to make this game close. And when I say surprise, I mean, let's keep it within 7 points. Let's keep it within the spread. Let's keep it within let's make it into a 1-possession game at the end of the game. Let's force overtime. Let's really force them. Let's really make them have to struggle to beat us. And they walk out of there saying, we barely got that win. And I think that could surprise Lincoln Riley. And I think that Mike Locksley isn't going to be loyal to anyone in the starting lineup. If you're not playing well, you're going to sit down. And I think that's where he said he's made some changes, so that'll be interesting as well. But I do think the Terps have a pretty good chance of surprising USC. Malik Washington needs to save Maryland football. I'll talk about that after this ad from FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-plays, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You will get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Make sure you guys go on to FanDuel if you want to bet on the Thursday night football game tonight, where the Saints are minus or plus 2.5 versus the Broncos. You can do that over at FanDuel, or if you want to bet on the baseball playoffs, or if you want to bet on college football this weekend, USC Maryland. Maryland is +7 against USC at any value in that. Make sure you guys head over to FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com. So Malik Washington actually made a humongous jump in the 247 rankings, which I thought was honestly really awesome. But I think when we talk about Malik Washington, at this point, I think he has to be the savior of Maryland football. I know we've only had one bad year, and it's not like, oh, we've done so many different things bad, and we've had a bad last 3 years. But I think based on how this year has gone, Malik Washington's going to have to save Maryland football. We just haven't looked good. And I think that there's a strong shot, a really strong shot, that he comes in next year and starts right away. I think that Billy Edwards has been good for Maryland football. He's been decent, but I don't think that he will be able to hold off Malik Washington next year. I don't see it happening. I think Cameron Edge is going to be gone next year. I think he enters the portal. I think MJ Morris probably going to be gone next year. Probably enters the portal, to be completely honest, because you have a big talent coming in like Malik Washington. And I think when I look at it, I think he has to be able to save Maryland football. Because right now, we are in the dumps, and I don't know how you get out. And the one thing that I can think of going into next year, because I don't know what it's going to look like, just my way too early vision of how things are going to potentially go. I see a lot of people entering the portal. I see us becoming pretty thin. I'm thinking a lot of freshmen are going to have to play in this talented freshman class. But I'm thinking a lot of those guys aren't going to be able to make the impact that a quarterback's going to be able to make in Malik Washington. And here's the thing about starting a freshman quarterback. There can be a lot of excitement surrounding your program when you're starting a kid that's supposed to be the next big thing, and he's supposed to be the next big talent, 5-star type of guys, 4-star, top 100 types of players, top 5 quarterbacks in the 2025 class. He's ranked number 5 ranked quarterback now. He's ranked number 2 in the state of Maryland, and he's ranked 50th ranked nationally. When you bring in a kid like that that's potential to play right away, you bring in a new excitement, a new kind of feel to your program. Look, think about what Nebraska this year. A lot of people were talking about them preseason because they got the kid to flip from Georgia to Nebraska, the Dylan Raiola kid, and a lot of people were really excited about that. Thought that was a really cool add-on. Thought that was something that a lot of people in the country wanted to look forward to, and a lot of Nebraska fans. And I think Maryland might not be quite to that degree, but I think if you look at our quarterback situation and you look at Maryland potentially going to Malik Washington next year, that's something that matters. And I also think he's just the most talented player Coach Locksley has had. I don't think Coach Locksley has had a talent quite like Malik Washington. I don't think he has had a guy with as talented as his arm and is talented with his legs. I think Billy Edwards could get some of the stuff with the legs, even though this year I've been like, we haven't really rushed Billy Edwards. Billy Edwards hasn't rushed the ball that much. Why do we take away his best factor? Why do we take away his best attribute? They did it more last game against Northwestern, and obviously that didn't work out awesome, but still, I've been saying that. But I think that Billy Edwards has the legs, but in terms of a pure thrower of the football, he doesn't have it. And then Talia's opposite. Talia's small. He has a really cool arm, but it's not as strong as Malik Washington. Can't make the same plays as Malik Washington. And Malik Washington is the first guy that Mike Locksley has had that has a chance to really be a complete type of quarterback, like a complete quarterback prospect, a guy that makes all the throws, can throw off platform, can make throws on the run, can do all these different things that when you think of complete quarterbacks can do. And he's a guy that has NFL upside, and it might be way too early to say that, but I think that he has a chance to be a really good type of player. And his 40-yard dash even 5, so he's a dangerous runner, and he's only going to get a little bit faster as he continues to go on. And he does so many things that really high level. Like 247 says, he tends to serve up a tight spiral and has the velocity to attack the perimeter. So I think that he's a guy that I think has to save us, because if he doesn't work out, then I don't know where this program goes. I really don't. I can see in a really long term, Coach Locksley getting fired, things not going the right way. A lot of people leave. I just can see this program going into shambles. But if he hits and he works out his freshman year, it's a whole different component. It's a whole different thing. And I know he might not be the starter right away, but I do think that it's going to be really hard for Billy Edwards to fight him off forever. But I think that Washington will have a good chance. But I think that when you look at this year, we can't have another year like this where we start 0-3 in Big Ten play against, and we haven't even played closest to our hardest team. We haven't played the 3 hardest teams in our schedule yet, and we're already 0-3 in Big Ten play. We can't have this situation where our play calling hasn't been good. We can't have a situation where our offensive line has been really bad. We can't have this situation where our secondary has been really horrible. And I think Malik Washington has to come in and be able to save us. Sure, he can't do a lot of the things I just talked about, but I'm telling you, bring in a quarterback, bring in that new energy, and a kid that just made a humongous jump. Like he was ranked like in the he was ranked in the like 250th-ish type of ranking. So he was about 250th in the class before this, and he jumped all the way to 50th nationally because he has been absolutely balling in high school. And so I think that you look at him and you say, can he save our program? And I think that it's going to be a lot of pressure on him, but I think that this year proves that we're going to need a guy like him, because clearly we have not figured out life after Talia, and he could be the answer, and he could be the next humongous thing that Maryland football has. I do not think that Mike Locksley should be fired. We'll talk about that after this ad from Hims. Guys, sometimes intimate moments happen spontaneously, and we always want to be ready so we can perform in the bedroom. Hims provides us access to treatments that help you stay hard and last longer. Give you that boost in confidence so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. Your sex life is important, but your schedule is busy. You don't have the time to go to the doctor's office to get treated for ED. Through Hims, you can get personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside the door. Hims is changing men's health care by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctors, trusted ED treatments like Trubel, Hardmints, and Viagra, and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. Mike Locksley should not be fired. Even if we lose out the rest of the season, which honestly, I don't want to say is a possibility, but it's a possibility. I don't want to say that it is, but look at the schedule. We might be underdogs in every single game. USC this weekend, we're an underdog. On the road against Minnesota, I don't know yet if we'll be an underdog or overdog. Might be a pretty close line. Oregon, definitely underdogs. Rutgers, probably maybe underdogs. Iowa, probably maybe underdogs. Penn State, underdogs. So you're looking at it and you're saying Maryland might not win another game this season. But I'm still on the wavelength that I don't think that Mike Locksley should be fired. I just don't. I don't think that that's the right thing to do. And I don't think that he should be completely blamed for a really bad year. And I know that a lot of it is on him, but I do kind of think that going into this year, we recognized it might be a slight rebuilding year. And I think after having really good years over the last couple of years and winning 3 straight bowl games, and just going to 3 straight bowl games for the Maryland Terrapins and winning them and getting this program back to track and adding a win on every single season, I think that you can't just throw that all out the window because we've had a bad year. So many teams have bad years. So many coaches have down years. Now, it's a different story if next year looks bad. If next year starts to look bad, then that's when I could start having conversations. But right now, he still has solid momentum with this program. Our 2025 class is the best class that we've had in the past 10 years. Probably when you go back and look at it, there's one other class that was really good. But other than that, like this is probably one of the best. This is the best class Coach Locksley has had. And I know that we've struggled this year, but I think this is the best class Coach Locksley's had. He's done a good job at recruiting. He's done a good job flipping guys. He's done a good job building this program. He's done a good job winning besides this year. I just don't think it makes sense to fire him. I think there's other components to this program that we have to get better at, that we have to continue to find a way to get more of. Talking about the NIL, we just don't have a ton of money as well. And imagine if we had more money, more NIL to go around. That's when we could start really cooking with this program. And I think that's something that matters. But I'm not on the wavelength that Coach Locksley is a bad coach. I do think there's things that he doesn't do well, like prepare after the bye, like we saw last week when we lost to Northwestern. I do think that he struggles with a lot of the run game stuff, and Coach Gaddis hasn't really figured it out for us in developing offensive line and getting those guys in the right spots. I think he struggles with some of that. But I'm still on the wavelength that he's the guy that brought this program to now where you have the expectation where we drop our first 3 Big Ten games. A lot of people are saying, what the heck? What is Coach Locksley doing? Like, he's been a lot better than this in the past. Now we're dropping games. And so I think when you look at what he's done in the past, when you look at what he's recruited now in these last couple of classes and what he's starting to recruit in the future, I don't think you want to fire Coach Locksley. My only concern is, does this program get stale? And were we on an upward slope and then we hit a downward slope now? And do we kind of just hit this medium where it's like we don't really have anywhere else to go under Coach Locksley? That's my kind of concern, is that can he reach a new level? But I still think he can, because the main reason is because he's been recruiting at a really high level. Bring in Malik Washington that I just talked about. But if it doesn't work next year with Washington and some of these other guys, I think that's when you start to question, is he the problem? Should we get rid of him? But this year, there's a lot of change. Secondary, whole new secondary, offensive line, 5 new guys. I think you got to work on that. So every year we don't have 5 new offensive linemen and we have to replace them all in the portal. Like, you got to be able to recruit some of those guys, bring them up, develop them. But I do think that he's a good coach, and I know we've been getting a lot of fire Locksley, and people are like, don't sugarcoat it. Mike Locksley should be fired, but that's not how I feel about it. That's not how I feel about it at all. We're not a program where it's like Bama, where if we start 0-3 in SEC play, it's like, what the heck did we just do? Like, this guy's got to go. Like, we're not that type of program. So I think when you have a tough stretch of 3-4 games or whatever it is, I don't think the instant answer is just to fire your coach. But that's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked On Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you for listening to Locked On Terps.